talk a little bit about parasomnia. So parasomnia is like a type of sleep disorder, usually including strange behaviors or abnormal behaviors with like movement, feelings, and activity while you're asleep, in various stages of sleep. This includes things like sleepwalking, night terrors, grinding your teeth, confusional awakenings, and rhythmic movement disorder and restless leg syndrome, breathing complications, and even wetting the bed and sleep sex, which are a little bit more taboo, I know. Sleep talking isn't usually considered parasomnia, but it is often associated with various forms of it. It's also pretty common, like a lot of people just talk in their sleep. When it comes to figuring out if you have parasomnia, the normal route is through various questionnaires and going to see your doctor and talking to them about it. But first you should try ruling out whether you're sleep deprived, very stressed, have a fever, are sick or unwell in some way, are going through intoxication withdrawal or some kind of other medication. Make sure you don't have a different kind of sleep disorder or any other kind of medical problems that could be causing similar symptoms. Another thing is to check with your family, talking to them about what you did as a child, because often these things begin quite early on. Did you sleepwalk a lot or sleep talk a lot or just move around in your sleep? As well as talking to your family about history. Do people in your family have a history of parasomnia? Because they have been found to have some genetic links. You can also ask your partner if they've observed anything, and also time when these occurrences are happening. Children with parasomnia don't often bother getting diagnosed and treated because you usually do grow out of it. Parents usually take reasonable precaution, just making sure they're not hurting themselves, especially if they're in a bunk bed or something, and getting educated is always important. There can actually be serious clinical, physical, mental, and even legal ramifications. If you have parasomnia and you assault someone in your sleep, you still assaulted them, but you're not fully aware of it. And it's not an excuse as to just have anyone and everyone say, oh, I did it in my sleep, I didn't know. But it is an important issue to consider when it comes to people that really do suffer from these conditions. Behavioral treatments like relaxation therapies and hypnosis and generally just reducing stress in your life have been proven to help, but are not considered universally effective. Pharmacological solutions have been proven effective in reducing symptoms of parasomnia, but they do often also come with side effects which may not equal the same value to you. Night terrors are a specific type of parasomnia, usually identified as a nightmare or even confusional awakenings, but it is something different. Usually separately identified by feelings of being inconsolable, similar to a panic attack while you're awake. They also usually occur within the first few hours of you being asleep and appear first in childhood and usually fade away with time, but not always. People don't often remember the events of having a night terror or other parasomnia occurrences, but they can. Being tired, sick, or stressed can all inflame these occurrences. Other things you'll notice with a night terror is sitting up suddenly, bursting your eyes open, or screaming, having an accelerated heart rate, breathing, and even running and punching and kicking in your sleep, trying to physically protect yourself, and that's where you could also hurt your partner. Waking someone while they're having a parasomnia episode can be dangerous for you. Often if they're having a violent attack, they can turn on you when you try to wake them up. Sometimes they won't recognize you as someone they know, or they're just in such a state where it just happens. In children, there isn't really much concern about parapsychological or mental disorders, but there is more of a link in adulthood. There is actually some evidence to suggest that genetics are linked to the cause, as well as having low blood sugar, being stressed, having a fever, tired, a bunch of other things that I've already mentioned, as well as specifically taking central nervous system medications, even gastro and asthma. When I was little, I did actually often sleepwalk, and especially frequently asking for water. Never really thirsty, and I wouldn't actually drink anything. My mum would often just go, yeah, okay, we'll take you back to bed, and then and she would just walk me back to my bed, and I would fall back asleep because I kind of always was asleep. And I did this a lot, especially when I was younger, and then I always moved a lot when I was asleep. I always noticed that because I would always wake up with my bed kind of in a giant mess, like my sheets untucked and things like that. Sometimes I would notice my pillowcase actually coming off or like off completely, and I would never ever wake up in the same position as I fell asleep in. Whereas I would notice like my sister would specifically fall asleep in the one position and then she would wake up in the same position. And I thought that that was weird, but apparently I'm the weird one. I've also had a long hihistory of having nightmares. Usually pretty serious ones that I get really freaked out about and I wake up a lot, often themes of death and running for your life from various things, which I don't think is that uncommon, but I'm not really sure. As well as night terrors in particular, where I would not be okay after. I thought today I'd actually tell you the story of two of my recurring nightmares. So these are nightmares that I usually have between 2 times a year to like 4 or 5. Some years it's like very common. I once went about a year without having any of them recurring nightmares, which I thought was really awesome, and that it was over, and it's not. The first starts with me standing in the car park of a DVD store that I used to go to when I was little. You know, and it wasn't that weird to be there at night because we'd often go there at like 9 p.m. just before it closed to grab a couple DVDs for our sleepovers, that kind of thing. Specifically the movie Sleepover, a lot. But anyway, when I'm standing there, I'm facing away from this DVD store and looking into the car park. And a man comes running across and he stops for a moment to catch his breath, and then he turns around and looks behind him, and suddenly this other man who's running like a million times faster than he was sprints over to him and slices his face off. And it wasn't like gross, like blood and guts style. It was kind of like if his face was made of Play-Doh and you slice it off and then there would just be like a blank block space there, and then like a weird sheet of face that just kind of flubbed onto the floor. Still gross, but less gross, potentially. I guess it depends on who you are. By this point, I'm usually freaking out and I usually scream in my dream, and then he looks at me, the man with the sword. Also, why does he have a sword? I don't understand why that's particularly the weapon that my brain chooses so often. But anyway, he looks at me and I wake up. Every time I wake up. And it's just so gross and I can't believe that happened, and I'm like, ugh, I don't want it. And the first few times I had this dream, I'd wake up and I'd kind of just stay up because I was so unsettled by it. And then after a little while I decided, nah, I've seen this before. It's still terrifying and it wakes me up, but I can, after a little while, console myself and realize it was a dream and you have seen this before. Even if in the dream moment you don't remember any of it happening, now you can remember and you can justify it and move on. And I would go back to sleep. And then when I started going back to sleep, the dream started to continue afterwards. And this has also happened multiple times. Every time I wake up and then fall asleep again. Once I've fallen asleep again, it's not like it continues again. I'm standing in the car park back with this man and the other dude with the other face. Instead, I'm at a funeral. It's kind of like in a movie where you would see someone get murdered and then you see the funeral for the person. It just kind of cuts to it, conveniently, I guess, for movies. But I'm standing at this man's funeral and my family is there, and then a bunch of strange faces that I don't know. And I think I'm meant to be the pastor or the priest or something, or for some reason I'm speaking. I'm holding a microphone and I'm about to, or I just have finished saying something about the dude. And I'm really upset. And I walk around behind where I was standing, where there's this big tree, and I guess we're dedicating it to him because there's a plaque on the front of it. And when I walk around the other side, suddenly I see his face all stretched and pinned to this tree, and this time it is all gross with blood and guts. And I don't even wake up from that. It's when he opens his eyes and looks at me, and it's this disgusting stare that just freaks me out. It's so soulless seeming, and he just screams. I wake up, and I've never gone back to sleep after this, I don't think. I've just stayed up and I went, I'm just gonna watch The Little Mermaid again. Or Sleepover. something that will just be happy and like la la la, and there's no real face slicing off drama. But now also whenever I see someone that looks like this dude, I freak out and think he's just gonna scream in my face. And I live in fear of the day that someone introduces me like, hi, this is my new boyfriend, whatever. And I look at him and he looks just like it, and I'm gonna be like, no, I don't wanna know someone with that face because I can't see them regularly. It's gonna freak me out. And the other dream I was gonna tell you about is one that just involves me and my family. My immediate family. This is one that started when I was actually quite young, when we first moved to our new house, the one that my mother still lives in. It starts with me walking into her dining room where she has these beautiful giant cathedral windows that I love. And I look out the window and there's one of my favorite bushes that has these cool, weird orange flowers on it in spring, and they're in full bloom, and I just look at them, and out from them comes this beautiful orange tiger, and I think, wow, it's so majestic, and it just lies down in front of it, and I'm like, it's like a perfect photo with the flowers and the, you know. And then I squat down, kind of like kneel down on the floor to look through the bottom panel of this window, like to be eye to eye with this tiger. And then all of a sudden it looks at me like, I'm gonna eat you now. And I realize that there isn't any glass in front of me. It's not like I felt it like disappear, or like it come in, no, or it shattered or broke in any way, or that it was never there, it just now it's not there. And the tiger gets up and starts to come towards me, and I freak out because I know it's going to be able to get into the house, it's going to have to like squeeze and be awkward, but it's going to get in the house, and my family is all asleep for some reason in the middle of the day, but I'm fully aware that they're both passed out asleep and it's daytime. But I basically run through my house and I'm stopped in the hallway, and I have a decision to make. I can either turn and go down and save my sister in her room, or I can continue going forward to the end of the house and save my mother. And I'm stood there for too long trying to decide because I can't. I love them, they're my family. How can you justify making that choice, kind of thing? And then the tiger jumps on my back, and I think it's gonna shred me to pieces and be disgusting. Instead, it becomes a human, disformed, and they have scars that are in the shape of the tiger's stripes. And then suddenly I'm tied up. I'm just tied up. It's not that I was tied, I just now am tied. And he starts to hurt me, and like it was medical as well, like specifically removing this square of skin, or oh, we'll just take out this, and it was really horrific, and I won't go into much detail about that because that is gross. And I won't tell you a lot more of my other nightmares because they are a little bit less safe for work, I guess. Not PC at all. But you get the gist of what it's kind of like. And this nightmare I also have very often. And I always thought it was really weird because I understand the idea of having a nightmare about choosing between your family, but then just it being a pointless thing where I have a weird medical surgery by a deformed tiger dude. I'm not really sure what that means. Or if it really means anything. And it's just something that my brain made up, and then it freaked me out so much that it just replays it every time I'm freaked out or stressed, I guess. I have always noticed that I have more occurrences of nightmares and parasomnia when I am in stages of stress. And right now I'm getting married in like a week and a half, and everyone is like asking 1,000 questions of me, and I don't know, I'm 21, what do I know? Although I do have strong opinions on the kind of plates and cutlery I want. Hexagons and gold. So that's all I really had to say about this at the moment. I do have a short story that I would love to read you when I find it, which is a short story based on a few different nightmares that I had. I took some ideas from them and made a short story for school, actually, which now I hate the short story and it really freaks me out, and I can't believe I wrote it. And it also freaks my mother out, which is great. I may talk about this a little bit more later on or go more in depth about things, but we'll see. Okay, bye!